been about 7 hours since I watched Obsession. I went to the theater at 7:45 and it was over at 10 and it is now 5 in the morning. So, mathematically speaking, it would make the most sense for it to have been 7 hours. I'm still on edge. Like, I'm probably going to be looking over my shoulder as I record this video. I hate the silence, dude. Like, every time I stop talking and just hear the silence, it's like I'm in jump scare mode. Like, while I was watching the movie, there would be silence and it would be so quiet, and then it would be met by something super loud, and I'm like expecting that to happen, even though it's not, even though I'm not even watching a movie anymore. It's really weird. I've never felt this way after watching a movie. Um, it's not a good feeling, but regardless, the movie was really good, and I want to talk about it. I've already talked to some friends about it, but I don't know. I just feel like I need more, I need more of a sort of platform to say everything that I want to say about it. Um, Spoilers ahead, obviously. This is not really the kind of movie that you can analyze or do a review of without spoiling most of it. I went into it completely blind. I only saw like one clip, and it was like the teaser of like the scene when he's in the car, he's calling customer service, and even that didn't show the full scene, which was, obviously there was a lot more to that scene when it was in the movie. But yeah, that's the only thing I saw, and I would recommend anyone that's going to watch the movie to go into it blind, like I did. So yeah, if you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely recommend go and watch that. Go and watch it in a theater if you can. Um, that'll give you the whole sort of immersive experience. It was absolutely worth it to see in the theater, even though I don't normally go to movie theaters. I usually just watch stuff on my computer, but yeah, I'm starting to see the appeal now, even though it's ridiculously expensive. Um, it was worth it. It was worth it. I would definitely go again. Um, but yeah, anyway, there's your spoiler warning. After this point, I will be talking about the movie and I'll be revealing things about it that you'll not want to know going into it. Anyway, this movie was fucking terrifying. I was anxious the entire time. My heart was racing. I was sweating. There were tears in my eyes at multiple moments. And that is not normal for me. This is the first movie I've ever seen that has ever done that to me. And that's including like as a kid. Like, I don't know if I watched horror movies as a kid. I haven't really watched that many horror movies as an adult now, so I'm sure that's part of it. Um, but yeah, this is the first movie that's ever had me like that, and you know, like I don't really like making all-time claims about things right after I experience them for the first time, but this is definitely the scariest movie I've ever seen. Um, and there's no point in like waiting to give it that title because there's no competition. I would remember if there was any movie that made me feel like this before, I would remember. I mean, I literally do not feel safe in my room right now, and God, I don't want to hear any shit about that. By the way, anybody that watched the movie and wasn't scared and they're watching this like, oh, this grown ass man, he's scared, but it's just a movie, man. It's not real. Suck my fat fucking cock, okay? I know it's not real. I just told you this normally doesn't happen to me. I'm allowed to be scared by one movie, okay? And I'm not even saying I regret watching the movie, okay? Like, I respect it. I loved it, okay? But I don't want to hear anybody making fun of me for being scared, okay? This is a normal human reaction. Don't piss me off, all right? Anyway, the movie, plot-wise and character-wise, which are the more important aspects, was very, very good. Honestly, there's not really anything that I didn't like about it, which is good. I would normally start with the things that I don't like, I think, just get them out of the way, but there's really nothing that I didn't like. So, just to get straight into the things that I do like, the characters were incredibly realistic. I think is what makes the best horror movies for me personally, the ones that are the most scary for me, is ones that don't necessarily have a realistic premise. Like the movie couldn't happen in real life, but the characters and the way they behave, you know, that is realistic. Like if you could get one of those toys and make wishes using it that came true, it would likely play out like this, very often. That's assuming the world didn't end in like 2 seconds. I bet, I bet if that toy really existed and like the first person that bought it would probably wish for some crazy shit, and then everything would go downhill from there. There'd probably be like dragons flying around. But anyway, I think that's what the creator of the movie said. I think that's why it's in my head. I don't remember exactly who said that, but I'm pretty sure the creator of the movie said something like, "If this were real, there would be like dragons." Like it would not. It would the real world would not like look like real life. But anyway, with that sort of aside, assuming let's assume this is like the first guy to like maybe they just started making these and then he's like one of the first people to get it. Yeah, I think the characters were very realistic. The emotions that they had, I don't necessarily relate to them. I thought that a lot of them were pretty fucked up, but definitely real. I've definitely met people that are a lot like each one of the four sort of main characters here. I think my favorite character in the movie, just sort of writing wise, is the protagonist Bear. He is undoubtedly one of the most evil protagonists I've ever seen in a movie. Not one of the most evil characters altogether, but one of the most evil lead characters. Like one of the biggest turnarounds where it's like at this point in the movie, it's like I thought I was supposed to be rooting for this guy, but now it's like everything he does pisses me off. You know, it was almost kind of like Breaking Bad in that sense, although it was a lot less like drawn out. So it was a lot, because it's a movie rather than a 5-season TV show. So it was, it happened a little bit more quickly, but I still think it was executed very well. I think the point in the movie when I realized he was actually the bad guy was, for a lot of people, it was a scene earlier than this. For me, it was when she was asleep, and she started whispering to kill her, and he was like, what's so bad about being with me? Huh? You'd rather kill yourself than be with me? Absolutely heart-wrenching scene. I wanted to smack the shit out of him. I think the scene that turned a lot of people against him before that was the scene where they were having sex after the dinner, which I am not gonna lie, I straight up was not paying enough attention to that scene, and that is the reason why I wasn't really on the same page. I just wasn't paying enough attention. The jump to it from the dinner and the loud noises was just sort of took me out of it a little bit, but I didn't notice the faces she was making. I definitely didn't notice the tears that were coming out of her face. People were talking about how she was like visibly crying during that, heavily insinuating that it was sexual assault. And I understood that it was supposed to be like sort of the whole situation was sort of against her will, but I didn't realize that that's exactly what that scene meant at the time. So it took me a little bit longer to get to the point of hating Bear. But yeah, thinking back to that scene now, especially with the dinner before it, is very, very. It really just makes me want to watch the movie again because I'm sure there are 1,000 things that I would notice that I didn't notice the first time. I probably am going to do that. I'm not going to go to the theater again, but I'll probably watch the movie like multiple times just to like get the full scope of it because I can't believe like just hearing people talk about that scene online just sort of like it sort of like triggered the memories in my mind like things that I didn't even fully they didn't even fully register to me at the time, but like how he asked her if her dad really had cancer, and she responds by freaking out and she's like, does it really matter? And he's like, no, it doesn't matter. And then it cuts to them having sex, which is the rape scene, which is wow. I mean that's very heavy, and I wish that I caught on to that while I was watching the movie because I think that would have impacted the way that I watched the rest of it. But yeah, it's just very, very heavy stuff. The way that Bear takes advantage of Nikki in this situation, because I can see how a lot of people would maybe sort of gravitate towards defending him. At first, I mean, no, not really. I think if you finish the movie and you don't think the bear was the villain of the story, you're probably a little bit slow. But maybe like at first, because he didn't necessarily choose the situation that he was in. The way that it played out was not the way that he wanted. But I think what's important is that, you know, characters that are in the stories rarely do choose the exact situation that they're in. But what's really telling about people is when you put them in that situation unwillingly, it is, you know, it's even more telling about like who they are as a person, like seeing how they react to that situation, one that they did not choose to be in, shows a lot more about their character, you know what I mean? And the way that he chose to, you know, and it's not an easy situation, right? Like his only solution was to either kill himself or kill her. So, you know, not exactly the greatest deal in the world here. Like I understand his hesitation to do either one, but the way that he went about it was certainly showing of how selfish he was. He really did not care for her as a person or her well being, and I think that is honestly, you know, shown even from the beginning. Like this is another thing that I didn't even really catch on to it when I was first watching it, but it kind of just, you know, came to my mind after I finished the movie. Just like how little he seemed to actually care for her as a person in the beginning. And I think, you know, sort of the sort of major theme that I got from the movie was sort of male insecurity, sort of male cowardice, you know, and there's obviously, you know, a lot of like themes of misogyny and like the, you know, the male loneliness epidemic, I guess. Although maybe not exactly that, because he's not exactly lonely. He does have friends, but like just sort of, you know, like again, it's not a realistic premise, but the characters behave realistically because, you know, no man could actually do what he's doing, but there are a lot of men that would if, you know, given the opportunity. If they were given the opportunity to essentially freely take advantage of this person for their own benefit, they would probably do it simply because they are so insecure about themselves. They don't think there's any other way for them to get that satisfaction, and they're so selfish that they're willing to take it, even if it means hurting someone else. So, you know, very dark themes, but also very real. You know, people like Bear exist in real life, and it's, you know, that's probably the scariest thing about the movie was, you know, the turning point when you realize that Nikki is the real victim. And it really hurts, you know, thinking back on it, how in the beginning, you know, they seemed like they were such good friends, and honestly, it kind of seemed like he had a chance of getting with her, you know what I mean? I'm not like 100% sure on that. It's definitely possible that it wouldn't have worked out, but like at the very least, they were very good friends. Like she confided in him in the car that he's like the only person that she really trusts to talk to and stuff. But he doesn't even really care about her as a person. Like he doesn't even like know things about her. You know what I mean? Like something that stuck out to me was when he told Ian and Sarah about her dad, what she told him about her dad dying of cancer. Their initial immediate reactions were, doesn't she like not give a fuck about her dad? Like he lives in Washington. Like how is that even relevant? That's not even a thought that crossed his mind. And you think if they were such close friends and that he cared about her so much, that's something that he would know. But I feel like there are just so many things that, you know, he doesn't really care about her as a person. He more cares about her as like a sort of vessel. And another really important thing that came up earlier that kind of illustrates this. Actually, the very first scene in the movie, when they're at the restaurant and they're talking to the waitress. And again, this is not something that clicked immediately, but something that I clicked after finishing the movie. The whole situation that they're in, it's not really like the way that they were like playing it out and practicing what he's gonna say to Nikki. It wasn't really like focused on her, you know, or focused on like her reaction. It was only focused on like what he could do. They were kind of just looking at it as sort of like a means to an end. Like these are the lines that you have to say to get the outcome that you desire. And they weren't really sort of considering the the fact that she is a person with her own feelings and might respond differently than they anticipate. Another thing I noticed, not about that scene specifically, but in that scene is one example of it. Ian sort of having feelings for Nikki, or at least sort of like liking hooking up with her. Um, a lot of the time, and I didn't, again, this is another thing that didn't register me while I was watching it, but after watching the movie, I realized a lot of the things that he was doing seemed to be sort of like driving a wedge into their relationship, and sort of trying to like, not necessarily like, end his friendship with either one, but kind of like ruin the chances of them being anything more than friends, The advice that he's giving him at the beginning with the waitress might be intentionally terrible for that reason, you know what I mean? Like when he was saying the really heartfelt things, I didn't even think it was that corny, but they were like, "Oh no, that's corny as fuck. Don't say any of that." And the first time that I saw that, I was just like, "Okay, well, I guess they're just dumb and they don't really know how to talk to girls." Like that's fine. Like I already assumed going into the movie that that's kind of what it was going to be about. It was going to be about guys that don't really know how to talk to girls. But yeah, looking back on it with that greater context, he might have been like, consciously or subconsciously sort of trying to sabotage their relationship so that, Bear wouldn't really be like a threat or like a competition to him in a way. And that sort of goes back to the main theme that I was talking about of sort of male cowardice, right? Like they're not really willing to sort of just be open about what they actually want. They have to like sort of manipulate the outcome in a way that doesn't like directly come back to them or directly involve them, but ultimately leads to them getting what they want. And it doesn't involve them being honest. You know what I mean? Another example of this is after he drops Nikki off at home and he completely fumbles, he's like, "Hey, bye, freaky Nikki." And she's like, "Don't fucking call me that." It's just all around a really awkward situation. She goes back up to the window and is like, "Do you like me?" Like if there was ever a time to be honest, it would be now, but he still can't do it because he's simply too much of a little bitch. So, it just kind of points to like, again, I feel like people could maybe defend some of his actions closer to the beginning by just simple like confusion and like not really knowing what to do in the situation because it's such a complex situation, one that he did not intend to be in. You know what I mean? Like this is not exactly what he wanted, but I still feel like he continues to take the most cowardly possible route at every turn. And again, it wouldn't be like an easy decision to, kill yourself. But, in his situation, I don't really see any other option. You know what I mean? And even after that, even after he's like, thought about killing himself, Nikki gives him the option when she's talking to him through the body of the sort of fake Nikki. She gives him the option to kill her instead, which would also end the wish and would ultimately benefit him more than killing himself because he would get to continue living, but it would just sort of undo what he's done. So ultimately, that would still be the more selfish choice, but he won't even do that because he's so selfish. He wants to continue this sort of experience. He wants to like continue being with her. He's really the obsessed one. Like that's ultimately the genius of the title of the movie. It's not just like a attention grabby title. It's an incredibly well thought out title because it makes you think that he wished for her to be obsessed with him, but in reality, he's the one that's been obsessed with her the entire time. And that, the sort of like reveal of that, when it's sort of like you have the epiphany in your head, it's like, holy shit, this is a completely different movie from what I was expecting. And I know I'm not the first person to say that. Probably won't be the last person to say that, but I mean, that's because it's the truth, like it does a format that's been done before, but does it in such a unique way. It sort of like flips the whole concept on its head, and it makes a very, very unique watching experience. And again, I'm not exactly the most like elite cinephile movie watcher. I'm trying to get into movies. I've been watching a lot more recently. But yeah, I haven't seen like a ton. Horror as a genre, sort of like pure horror, is not really something that I've been into ever. I do like a lot of movies that have sort of horror elements, but mostly I just kind of like suspense and like drama. You know what I mean? Like I can be like anxious, but I haven't. There are not many movies that I've watched that are like Obsession, but it seems to be a common sort of takeaway that it was very unique and does something unfamiliar with a familiar concept, which is very impressive to me, especially from such a young filmmaker. You know what I mean? Like, he's not like a seasoned veteran or anything. He has been making short films for a long time. He has a YouTube channel, which is mostly comedy, but still, that's still like a form of filmmaking. And he also has like horror shorts. Not all of them are even short, actually. I think some of them are short, but I think some of them are actually like 40 minutes to an hour long. So it's not like it's necessarily his first rodeo, but still definitely not the most experienced. And he absolutely just knocked it out of the park with his first like real big sort of, project. Also very low budget. I'm pretty sure the budget for this movie wasn't even $1 million. So yeah, incredibly impressive stuff. I also want to go back to the scares. I kind of touched on that in the beginning. This movie was very scary to me, and I know a lot of people didn't think it was that scary. A lot of people that have seen more horror movies than I have didn't think it was that scary. They probably thought a lot of the scares were predictable. A lot of people use words like disturbing or unsettling, sad, but not necessarily scary. And I get what that means. Like that's kind of how I would describe something like Hereditary. I was never like scared watching Hereditary, but it was a very bleak, sort of dark movie. Like, it's definitely horror, but there's a difference between like horror and terror, right? So I thought Obsession was terrifying. It was terrifying and horrifying. So like I understand what people mean by that, but I disagree with it because I personally was like actually scared while watching it. A lot of the sort of like jump scares, I guess, there's not a ton of like jumping out at you stuff, like, I don't know, it's weird because it creates this sort of buildup where you kind of expect it to happen, but then it doesn't happen when you expect it to happen. But then it happens like right after. It's like, oh, well, I guess maybe there's not gonna be a jump scare. Boom! That's when it happens, and that's when I was like, holy shit, And I think that was really good because ultimately, I think he understands that, you can't really, like, at this point in time, you can't really do jump scares like that. Like, the first movie to ever have a jump scare in it, people all probably collectively agree that it was scary. But at a certain point, it gets to a point where you can't just do the same thing over and over. You have to sort of, like, play into the fact that people are expecting it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a horror movie. We're going into it. We know that we're going to get scared. So, like, you can't just scare us. You have to, like, sort of, like, yank us around a little bit. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm not describing this well at all, but that's the best way that I can describe it. It's like it would build it up to the scare being at this point, and then the scare would actually be at this point. So very well done stuff. Yeah, though, I'm glad that most people can agree that it's at least unsettling or disturbing. A lot of the shots that weren't necessarily jump scares definitely freaked me out. A lot of the shots with her, dude, a fucking chill just went down my spine. As I'm talking about this, I'm like remembering scenes from the movie because I'm trying to think of ones to talk about, and I just remembered this one shot. Like, I'm literally getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it, like, while I'm talking about it. It's like, holy, dude. It was scary. It was an honestly scary movie. The scene that I'm thinking about, probably the scariest scene in the whole movie, for me personally. It reminded me a lot of the scene from Pulse. And I'm definitely, for sure, not the first person to make that comparison. I'm 100% sure that, film critics a lot more well-versed in the genre than I am will have made this comparison already. But the first thing that I thought of when I saw the scene was that scene from Pulse where the lady is walking and she's sort of like, I'll probably just show a clip right here just to be more simple because I'm not really at a good camera angle to sort of recreate it myself. But yeah, that was an absolutely terrifying scene, and it reminded me a lot of the scene in the movie where they're sort of in his apartment, and she just starts like lunging at him weirdly, and then she's like walking backwards or something so weirdly. I don't even know what the explanation for that was, but it was actually like haunting. I was really, really like, wow, dude. I was scared, man. I was scared, and the actor that played Bear did a fantastic job of portraying the fear on his face. I will say, unfortunately, as good of an actor as he is, he could not outact the actress for the girl. There's no chance of that happening, and it's no disrespect to him at all, but there just was no chance. She was absolutely incredible. She was born to play that part. Is holy. I would love to meet any of the cast of this in real life, or the director Curry Barker. That would like any of that would be amazing because I want to give them their flowers in person, even though I know that this movie's been getting like a ton of praise, as they've already heard it. But like, I just need to tell them to their face, like, you scared the shit out of me, you know? Yeah, that apartment scene was horrifying. Another one of the things that I thought was scary, like the sort of like consistent thing that they kept doing, was whenever they would show her. I'm getting chills again just thinking about it, dude. When they would show shots of the girl, her name's Nikki, but I don't even know if I've said her name. I should probably stop saying the girl and I should start saying Nikki. But anyway, yeah, they would show shots of Nikki and it would just be like so dark and you would like barely be able to see like the glint in her eyeballs, but you wouldn't really be able to make out her face. It was so eerie, dude. Like I didn't know if they were gonna do something with that. Like maybe the wish was also gonna alter her face or something. I'm glad they didn't go that route because that wouldn't have really made sense. But but yeah, no, even then, even like assuming that her face still looks normal, like you can't really tell the expression that she's making. And sometimes even when there is lighting on her face, she is making a very creepy expression. So it's like when I can't even see it, I don't know what's going on, dude. It's like wow, dude. And I think a very good thing for the scary aspect of the movie is kind of how little they explain about it. They explain like just enough. Like they let you know just enough, but you only ever know as much as the characters do. You know what I mean? Like I'm glad they didn't explicitly show like what is happening to Nikki necessarily after the wish, right? Like it's not necessarily a different place that she's in, or maybe she's just like she's still in the body, like she can see out the eyes, but she's just not in control of the actions. Although I do think the movie implies that the Nikki that came from the wish is sort of her own person. You know what I mean? And not definitely not a normal person, like not a human, but she does have like vaguely human emotions. She's almost like a baby. You know what I mean? Like a newborn put into the body of an adult to fulfill this wish, right? It sounds even more creepy when I say it like that. But yeah, like there are a lot of things, there are a lot of human concepts that she doesn't really like grasp yet. Like I think, with the whole cat thing, she didn't really understand like why he didn't like the things that she did with the cat. Like when she made like the sort of memorial for the cat, he was like, "No, this is weird." And she was like, "Why is that weird? I thought like this is what people do when something that they love dies. They have like a memorial service for it. So I don't really understand why you don't like this." But obviously she was made to fulfill the wish, so she just sort of does whatever he asks. And it's like it's really horrifying to hear him like constantly berate and be like, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. No more of this. And she's like, okay, sorry. And it does not sound real at all. Like at first it almost sounded real, but after a certain point, it got to a point where it was just like, it almost seemed like the sort of wish version of Nikki was like bored. You know what I mean? Like even the wish version of Nikki couldn't love Bear. She was magically forced to, but it's sort of the difference between romance and love, like they talk about the movie, or the difference between like liking and loving. Like what Bear said was like, do you like me? And she was like, I love you. And he's like, no, do you like me? Like, does Nikki like me? Is Nikki happy with this arrangement? And she sort of didn't really know how to answer that, because I think she didn't really, you know what I mean? Like the way that he worded the wish made it very specifically sort of love. And obviously there are a lot of different ways that love could have been manifested. I guess you could argue that the way that it was manifested isn't necessarily love. But I think that a lot of the weird shit she did was just because the version of Nikki that was obsessed sort of, I mean, like I said, it just wasn't really like a fully developed human. Like maybe if she spent like a couple more years on Earth sort of like learning shit, maybe she would have been a little bit more functional. But yeah, I think that ultimately the feeling was love. It's just sort of like odd behavior from a character that was essentially born yesterday. And she almost had like mannerisms of the original Nikki. Like there are pieces of Nikki's personality there. But like the scariest piece of the movie really to me was the distortion of I mean, the scariest part of the scariest like concept of the movie was her personality was being like distorted and broken in ways to sort of fulfill the wish, because like he still needed it to be the same person, and it still basically was the same person, but obviously she doesn't love him more than anyone else in, you know, real. I mean, maybe she does love him a little bit, but not more than anyone else. So pieces of her personality had to be sort of broken to sort of make that, and the distortions, the way that the movie sort of represents the distortions of her personality in the character is fantastic, and the acting is absolutely. I cannot stress this enough. The acting is phenomenal. I don't know why I'm saying that like I'm recommending you the movie, because I already said if you haven't seen the movie yet, then don't watch this. But holy shit, I am blown away by how good the acting is in this movie. Another really notable scene that was very scary was the scene where they were sort of initially having sex for the first time, and the sort of first like glimpse, or actually, I don't even think it was the first. I think the first sort of glimpse of like the real Nikki coming out was actually in the first interaction, which is kind of like, what the fuck? Why am I acting so weird right now? I think that was sort of like the first iteration of that. But the second and more notable iteration was when they were. Can you guess what's happening right now? I'm imagining the scene in my head. I'm remembering it, and I'm like, damn, that was horrifying. Um, yeah, when they were first having sex, um, and she, or maybe they weren't even having sex yet. They were just making out. Um, and she just stops and goes, "What the fuck?" And then just loud as noise plays, and then everything is like I didn't know what was happening, dude. I didn't know if what's happening, because it's so early on in the movie. You don't really know how the wish is necessarily manifesting itself. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously when you're doing a movie like that that has supernatural rules, it can manifest itself in really any way that the director wants. So I didn't know if she was gonna straight up like kill him right there or something. I don't like it. Really could have been anything. But yeah, it ended up just being like a sort of like small glimpse, and then immediately went back to the wish Nikki. But yeah, that was that was terrifying. Um, yeah, and then he immediately gets super defensive, like the little prick that he is. He's like, I don't even remember what the fuck he said, but it was some stupid ass excuse. Um, that's another thing that I noticed early on in the movie, is that he got super defensive about that stuff. Like later on, after she gets a ride home from Ian, and he is like sort of talking to her about shit. I don't even remember why they were talking, because like I don't know. He noticed like she was acting weird, and he was talking about it. And then she came to his house later that night, or she came to Bear's house later that night after they talked. And by the way, before she knocks on the door, you can see her walk through the window, and I was like, dude, please don't do this, man. Like, what's about to happen? And that was that's one of those times where, like I said, it's sort of like a setup. Except that time there was no actual payoff to that setup, because it wasn't a scary scene. Like, she just walked past the window and knocked on the door, and then he opened the door, and it was very dark lighting. Like I said, like you could barely see her eyeballs. It was like very creepy, but ultimately nothing actually scary happened in that scene. It was like kind of on, because you didn't know what was going to happen, but the scene ended with nothing scary happening, and that's really good, because later on in the movie, build-ups like that would happen, and you would think like maybe nothing's gonna happen, but then it would, like, the moment you started thinking, okay, maybe this isn't actually gonna be anything, then it would hit you, and it would have you shit yourself. At least that's what happened to me. Anyway, what was I gonna talk about with that scene? Oh yeah, she comes to the door, and she talks about how she was on drugs, which she was not, and likely is, I think she was kind of just using like sort of what Ian said. Like, Ian probably already, like, she knew Ian probably already talked to Bear about it, and was like, I think she was on drugs, and then she just came to his house and was like confirming that, because obviously wish Nikki is not above lying to sort of manipulate him. But anyway, yeah, the sort of when she comes to like she brings up the idea of like him taking advantage of her, but she was saying like, no, I don't think you were taking advantage of me. And the way he just got super defensive about that, I was like, I didn't know you were on drugs. I wasn't taking advantage of it. She was like, no, that's what I'm saying. I wasn't saying you were taking advantage of me. You know what I mean? It's like the instant defensiveness of that. Like, this guy is just such a textbook, like, fake nice guy. And I fucking, dude, I hate that guy, dude. I hate Bear. Just thinking about him now, just thinking about the way he was acting. Like, how could you do some of this shit and still like walk around thinking like you're like the chill guy that everyone likes, that you like, you couldn't really do anything wrong. Like just thinking like just because he's not outwardly a dick, um, that he's just like fine. Like I don't understand. How could he just I mean, I believe it. Like I said, he's a realistic character. I believe that people exist like that would act like him. Because I met people like that and I know people like that. But this still, I mean, thinking about those people that I know in real life is just like, how could you act like that? How could you let someone go through that and, not even like try to stop it? Like, like I said, it's not like easy. It's not an easy situation that he's in right now, but he's kind of just like accepting it. Like he accepted it way too fast, right? Like he was kind of just like, oh, I can kill myself. I can kill her. I don't really want to do either of those things. So I guess we'll just stay together then. And then so they do, and he just lets everything happen, and that's not okay. You know what I mean? Like just sort of like the acceptance of everything and sort of just like letting things happen is not okay. He is responsible for fixing the situation that he created, and I think that is a very, very well executed sort of metaphor where it's like he's not intentionally doing all these things, but he's not really going out of his way to stop them either. So it's sort of like he didn't really want to be in this situation, but now that he is in it, he's seeing the opportunity to take advantage of it, to be like, okay, I can get what I want from this, but also not be seen as the bad guy. He's not really worrying about actually if he is a bad guy. He's worried about if people look at him as a bad guy, because it's all about his image, right? He just wants to outwardly be that nice guy that people can talk to, but inside it's all about his own goals. He's just a super selfish piece of shit, and he ultimately doesn't really care about anyone else in the story. Another one of the saddest scenes that I saw was after the party, when they were in the car. This is after she woke up, or she didn't wake up, but the real Nikki was talking through the asleep Nikki. And then Bear went out to the car to talk to Sarah. Sarah obviously has no idea what's going on. She has no idea that there's any danger. She just thinks that Nikki is acting weird, and her first thought is that Nikki might be taking advantage of Bear. I don't really know how I felt about that. I think that Sarah is probably the most sympathetic character in the movie, but I definitely don't think she's perfect. A lot of the decisions she made, I mean, she clearly likes Bear, but, a lot of the things she did are probably not the best things that she could do in that situation, even if she did have good intentions. It's arguable whether she did have good intentions. I think it's possible that she did. I think at the very least, she wouldn't be as willing she wouldn't be as selfish as Bear in his situation, but she might have had some selfish intent with the whole, sort of trying to break them up thing. But yeah, ultimately, regardless, I mean, whatever you want to say about her, maybe you don't like her character at all, but the way that she went out was not pretty, and she definitely did not deserve that at all. Obviously, again, one of the most like expected things, like it's, the movie doesn't necessarily sort of surprise you with it in the sense that like you didn't know that she was going to die. Like most people, again, I'm not even like a big horror fan, but I knew as soon as he got in the car that she was going to die. So, it's more about like the timing of it. And then when it happened, it wasn't necessarily one of the biggest jump scares either. Like I didn't jump out of my seat when that happened, but my heart did still sink into my stomach. The way that she died too, I mean, was so brutal. I mean, she broke the window with the glass she broke the glass with the brick, holds the brick against the steering wheel, grabs her head, slams her head into the brick. She doesn't even like hit her with the brick. She grabs her head and pushes her head into the brick. Like that's fucking crazy. That's another level of disrespect. Like I'm not even gonna move the brick. Like you're gonna move into the weapon. You know what I mean? Like that's so crazy, dude. And it was in front of the steering wheel, so it was like honk, 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 honk. Dude, oh my god. I don't even remember if that was in the movie or if that's just like placebo effect. I feel like I remember there being honking when she hit her head against the steering wheel. Dude, and it almost has like a humor element to it. But yeah, no, when it happened in the movie, I was dude, oh my god. And I just the most prevailing thought was the most prevailing thought throughout most of the movie at this point was like, fuck Bear, dude. Fuck this guy. Like I said, it was right after the scene where she asked him to kill her and he doesn't. So this was sort of like, it was kind of like fresh in my mind, like I hate this guy, and then like immediately after Sarah gets killed because of the decisions that he made, and it's like, okay, fuck this guy even more. And then every scene after that is just like, fuck him, fuck him, fuck him. Everything that he does is just fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. He doesn't make a good decision like a single time in this movie, except like the one decision that he made that was good is like at the ending, but even then he went back on it. You know what I mean? So the way the movie ends is perfect. I loved every bit of it. It's like it's just so perfect. The way that he, what ultimately was his undoing was the thing that got him in that situation in the first place. You know what I mean? Like how she, made the wish, and that sort of distracted him from trying to save himself. So he went back out there to be with her. Because it manifested itself in like the same way that it manifested for her. So he wasn't really like worried about like saving himself anymore. But if she hadn't wished for it, then he would have saved himself and then would have been like fine. So ultimately, like Wish Nikki would have actually gotten what she wanted if she didn't make the wish. It was still like a kind of satisfying ending. Like it wasn't exactly a happy ending. I don't even know if I'd describe it as bittersweet. But I think it was the happiest possible ending they could have gotten given the circumstances, because he does end up dying, which I was really glad to see. When I saw him stick his fingers on it, I was like, bro, if he lives through this, I swear to God, I will. I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna be upset, to just put it lightly. But yeah, no, he did end up dying. I think that was like, I think actually him trying to save himself at the end was a note from the actor. I've watched a lot of like analyses of this movie and like, interviews with the director and actors like right after watching the movie. That's like the first thing I did. So that's why all this stuff is in my mind. But I think it was a note from one of the actors that they were like, what if, or I think it was the actor for Bear. He was like, what if like right after I swallow the pills, I try to throw up instead and just save myself. Just like one final act of cowardice just to show how much of a piece of shit I am. Even after all this, even after both my friends are dead, our lives are ruined. We're probably going to prison for the rest of our lives. Like it's over. But even after all this, he's too much of a pussy to make the right choice. I mean, he does for a second, but then he like goes back on it. And even before the pills, he was gonna shoot himself, but he didn't do that because I guess that would have been like he was too scared to kill himself that way. Honestly, I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I've never had a gun pointed at my head before. So I guess people that have had guns pointed at their head before, let me know how it feels to have a gun pointed at your head. But personally, I feel like it would be a better way to go out than pills. Like, I'd rather because it would be kind of instant, right? I mean, unless you miss, that would be unfortunate. I guess pills are kind of more of a surefire way. But ultimately, an overdose doesn't sound like a great way to go. It's definitely not peaceful. But yeah, I guess it was just sort of easier for him to do that. But yeah, I mean, the ending is fantastic. The way that he just goes like, I wish for $1 billion, and it just falls through. I was so upset, bro. But I mean, it is kind of cool how they Curry sort of uses his sorry, Mr. Barker. Can I call you Curry? Curry Barker, the director of the movie, sort of uses his experience with comedy shorts that they have on their YouTube channel. And he sort of like weaves comedy into the movie in a really natural way. And I think that it can be really hard to do that. A lot of the time, it's difficult for people to write jokes into like a serious movie, and have it come off in a way that doesn't like take away from the serious tone. But it's done very well in this movie, and I think it's sort of, I mean, not only does it just make it more entertaining because it's funny, but it also sort of relieves the tension in the moments. Like it's not entirely like the most bleak movie out there, because there are moments of relief. And ultimately, like I said, the ending isn't like the most dark possible thing. Like she does end up being free of the curse, right? So it's not like, it's not necessarily like the darkest movie ever made, but definitely when it's dark, it is dark. And if they wanted to, sort of keep that tone throughout the whole movie, I think it would have been a lot harder of a watch. So I'm glad that they sort of were able to weave comedy into it. I think the phone call scene with the customer service guy, probably the best moment of comedy in the movie. I thought it was really funny. And it's immediately followed up by one of the scariest scenes in the movie when he's like, do you want to talk to her? And it's just her screaming over the phone. And again, you don't know exactly what's happening. You don't know exactly how he got her on the phone either, but it's, she's not having a good time. So it's like, it's really, really sort of visceral screaming, and it just got like, you know, I don't know. It's just really impressive how many scenes in this one movie got a reaction out of me. Like there are a lot of movies that have like maybe like one particular scene that got kind of a like a reaction out of me, like whoa, like that's kind of creepy, right? But just the amount of times this movie was able to actually have me like wow, dude, it was scary. One more scary thing that I want to talk about before ending this video is the sleeping scene when well he wasn't sleeping, but when he wakes up from being asleep, he sees that she's not next to him, and I was thinking, oh, where is she? I don't know where she is, and I already brought up Hereditary, but it does kind of a Hereditary thing where it sort of like pans, and then you can see like a glimpse of her for a bit. I didn't know it was her. I was like, I kind of thought like, is that just supposed to look like her, or is it like, was it panning past her on purpose? But then she like, I forgot what she does. But I think she just screams his name. She's like Bear, and it was chills, dude, chills. The amount of times I've gotten chills just recording this video, just thinking about it, dude. It's so off-putting. And it almost is like, it kind of has like moments of relief in it a little bit. Because what I was telling myself was like, she's not going to hurt him, right? Because she is in love with him. But I just didn't know for sure like what was going to happen. It was really had me activating like my fight or flight response, because I mean that's just what your brain does when you don't know what's going to happen. You don't really know what you're dealing with. And I thought for a second, like she was just like, I like watching you sleep. You look cute when you sleep. But I was like, can you just watch him from like the side of the bed or something? Like, why you got to be in the corner over there like a little creepy little freak, Freaky Nikki over here. She's in the corner. Like she could get a better angle if she was like looking directly over him. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, just then she starts screaming and sobbing about how she doesn't like her dreams. That was one of the most. I mean, I've probably said this like 50 times already, but that was honestly kind of one of the most unsettling lines of the movie. What the hell are her dreams, dude? Does she dream like? Does she have her own dreams? Does she even sleep? I mean, well, yeah, she does sleep because she was asleep at that one time. But like, when she's asleep, is she sleeping the way that humans normally sleep? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, does she have her own dreams, or maybe her dreams are just sort of like, I think there's sort of like emphasis put on this idea that the real Nikki can kind of like fight through and sort of like, make, take back control, even if just for a second. So it's not like, the wish has like permanent control over her. Like she can sort of like fight through it a little bit. So I wonder if while fake Nikki is asleep, that's when the real Nikki has the most power to do that, which is why she was able to talk while she was asleep. But yeah, that makes me wonder, like when the fake Nikki's asleep, are her dreams like real fabrications of fake Nikki's brain, or is she just seeing the visions of real Nikki and whatever she's experiencing? Are those even different? I mean, they do likely share a brain, so does that mean they share a consciousness? Who knows? But honestly, I just think that not knowing what she means by not liking her dreams is I mean, maybe she didn't mean anything by it. Maybe her dreams are fine, and she was just saying that to guilt trip him. I don't know, but like, dude, either way, it like really fucking messed with me. And then her movements in that scene, not as bad as the later scene where she's like lunging at him. That like 1 second where she just like, what the fuck was that? Like that didn't even need to be in the movie. Like he chose to put that in just to piss me off. Like, oh, dude, don't piss me off. But whatever. Yeah, her movements in the nighttime scene are pretty creepy. And then she goes and gets a flower pot and sort of like walks sideways while holding it. Like, it's just so odd. Like she's not even trying to be odd. Is what is like the really weirdest thing is like she's not trying to be scary. You can sort of write off a lot of things she does. They're scary to us as people because we're normal people, and she's not acting like a normal person. So seeing a person that looks like a person not acting like a normal person is scary. But to her, she just simply doesn't understand. Like she's not a fully developed human. There are a lot of things that she doesn't really get, and it's not really like we'll probably never know exactly what was going through her head or why she decided to hold a flower pot in front of her head and walk sideways. All I know is I was really relieved when she stopped doing that and put the flower pot down and started acting vaguely normal again. But then right after that, she was laying next to him, He tries to get up and she's like, stay! She screams. This movie was so scary. And once again, I do not care what anyone says about that. I don't care if people are going to call me pussy and say that I get scared too easily. I do not care. Honestly, I think that you are just an unfeeling monster if you didn't get scared by this movie, because it was horrifying. Anyway, that's pretty much all I had to say about it. So yeah, I guess that's the end of this video now. Let me know what you thought about the movie in the comments.